Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Wherever you are, we warmly welcome each and every one of you on our Institution of Global Professionals free webinar. I am Sir Jason S. Humang, a licensed professional teacher currently teaching at Calonteta National High School from the beautiful country of the Philippines, and I will be hosting today's episode. I am proud to be associated with IGP as a global member. I feel really honored and privileged to host this webinar. It's also my delight to welcome you all in this institution of global professional free webinar. Again, I thank you all for joining us today in this marvelous evening, and it's my humble request and pleasure that you all stay with us until the end, for I'm pretty sure we'll have many takeaways and payoffs from this episode. Moreover, you can like, comment, and even tag, share, and mention your friends in the comment box. So let's watch together and learn together because we believe that the power is gained by sharing knowledge. Every day, some new participants join with us on our free webinars. And so, I have to give a little concept about what an IGP is all about. Institution of Global Professionals, or IGP, serves students and community resource, providing social work and education to create a proficient generation. IGP is also a leading online skill development institute with thousands of learners worldwide. We are able to share information useful to expand knowledge, boost confidence to face any circumstance, and most importantly, to develop own skills. We are being entrusted with international recognition. IGP also provides social works because we believe that it's not effective to increase one's skills just by acquiring formal education. And so, we provide effective training and consultation to produce proficient generation all over the world. IGP also organizes webinars, trainings, offline and online courses by the best and trained speakers, coaches from the entire world to create a best learning platform for you all. Our mission is to empower people and provide each student a solid foundation of knowledge and skills to help them become a confident learner. And now, we have completed 323 episodes successfully. We hope that you are getting benefited both in personal and professional life, and we wish that you all remain with us and stay with us throughout this journey. Before we begin our program, let me remind you once again, our lovely audience, to share, tag, comment, and mention your friends in the comment box because your attachment encourages us to do better and provide our best services to you all. And now, I am really excited to present to you our webinar number 324 for our webinar series in Research Comprehensive Approach. And today's research topic is all about the statement of the research problem, hypothesis, and framework. And our speakers for today are Dr. Clarence Hakuman and Dr. Marvin Bolivar from the beautiful country of the Philippines. So let's start our program with IGP's mantra, feed your skills. Our first speaker is a head teacher 3. Also, he is a doctor of education and school disaster risk reduction management member. Let's all welcome on screen Dr. Clarence Hakuman.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
I'm good. Slightly nervous.
Slightly nervous.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, sir. I know you can do it.
Thank you, sir.
Right. So if I'm not going to prolong the agony of reading anymore, I know that everybody is excited to hear your presentation. So if you're ready, sir, then take it away.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good day, everyone. I am honored to be one of the resource speaker for this day's webinar. I am Dr. Clarence Zakuman from the Philippines, currently an HT3 or Head Teacher 3 at San Guillermo National High School here in the Philippines. Let me share with you my knowledge regarding statement of the problem and hypothesis. But first, let me share with you my slide. Okay. Okay, there you are. So my first topic is about the statement of the problem. A statement of the problem is used in research work as a claim that outlines the problem addressed by a study. One of the most crucial and important steps in any research or study is to identify and delineate the research problem, that is, what the researcher wants to solve and what questions that he or she wants to answer. The statement of the problem briefly addresses the question, what is the problem that the research will address? What are the key characteristics of a statement of the problem? A good research problem should have the following characteristics. First, it should address a gap in knowledge. Second, it should be significant enough to contribute to the existing body of research. Next, it should lead to further research. The problem should render itself to investigation through collection of data. It should be of interest to the researcher and suit his or her skills, time, and resources. And lastly, the approach towards solving the problem should be ethical. A research problem can be an area of concern, a gap in the existing knowledge, or a variation in the norm or standard that points to the need for further understanding and investigation. Although many problems happen to have several solutions, difficulties arise where such means are either concealed or are not directly available. This then entails some research to reach a feasible solution. What are the key characteristics of a statement of the problem? An effective problem statement is concise and concrete. It should, first, put the problem in context, or what do we already know? Secondly, describe the precise issue that the research will address. What do we need to know? Show the relevance of the problem. Why do we need to know it, or why do we need to know the problem? Lastly, set objectives of the research. What will you do to find out? The main goal of an statement of the problem is to transform generalized problem into a targeted, well-defined problem, one that can be resolved through focused research and careful decision making. Writing your statement of the problems varies according to the research design. The SOP must have a general and specific problem. The statement of the problem must clearly identify the purpose of the research problem, a project rather, that will be proposed. The statement of the problem will also serve as the basis for the introductory section of the final proposal, catching the reader's attention quickly to the issues that is being proposed and provided the readers with a concise statement of the proposed project itself. Bear in mind that the statement of the problem need not to be long and elaborate. One page is more than enough for a good statement of the problem. The general problem of this study must be anchored to its representation in the title. Let us have an example. Title: Stress Causing Factors Experienced by Secondary School Teachers and its relationship with job characteristics. General problem. The purpose of this study is to uncover the stress-causing factors experienced by secondary school teachers of the division of Olongapo City and its relationship with job characteristics. Example of specific problems. Specific problems must answer the general problems as well. So example, we have based on our general problem, we have these specific problems. Number one, how is the stress causing factors experienced by secondary school teachers be described on the following aspects. Organizational factors, we have time, bureaucracy, working environment, physical environment, service, accrued classroom and size of classroom, and security. Work-related factors, we have job demands, role, changes in technology, and support. Second question or specific problem, how is the job characteristic of secondary school teachers be described in terms of job description and job performance? So this is an example of your specific problems based on our general problem. Based on our general problem and our, which is based in our title. So next one. Sources of our uh, statement of the problem. Review of related literature and studies, theories and preliminary data gathering, especially in qualitative researches. That is why it is important to conduct a non-formal interview in this manner. For quantitative research, SOP or the statement of the problem must be less than 10 specific problems or questions, or else resetting of the significance value in the hypothesis must be done. Likewise, qualitative designs begin at central questions and specific questions are depending on the said philosophy. Mixed method design depends on the phasing of strategies, either quali to quanti or quanti to quali or concurrently done. It depends on your uh, research or study. Our SOP or the statement of the problem must be SMART. It must be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time bounded. So let us have the first one, which is specific. Target a specific area for improvement. Be specific means in-depth research about an ambiguous issue you want to address. Necessarily, avoid general statements such as, this project will improve the employability of young people. Instead, write what the specific context of the project is. For instance, be specific about the unemployment rate among young people in your community. What are the causes? What strategies have been already implemented? Evaluate what has been already done successfully and draw on the results of previous initiatives to engage with other actors and sources. Explain why other initiatives failed and how your project will avoid replicating the same mistakes. It is a good practice to list your objectives in bullet points. Next one, we have measurable. Quantify or show an indicator of progress. Your objectives must be measurable. Keep in mind that your donor wants to know how the success of your project can be evaluated. Therefore, your objectives must enable the donor to monitor the progress of the project and assess the results. Following up the previous example, state how many young people will be participating in the project, how many will be trained, how many will be likely to find a job within the end of the project, within a month or within a year. Refer to statistics and analysis of the local market to substantiate your claims. As good practice, write that a list X number people will participate, be trained, and become employed. In doing so, you will provide a minimum benchmark against which your results will be evaluated and will also give the idea that a larger number of individuals will successfully take part in the project and benefit from the organized activities. Next, happened? Wala slides ko. The next objective is it must be achievable and relevant. Research your community and make you know whether your project is likely to be welcome or whether it is needed. See achievable targets. Do not claim that a year-long project will produce radical change. Rather, see clear objectives that can be fulfilled. Remember that, oops, sorry. Uh-huh. It must be achievable. I think there's something wrong with my slides. Sorry for that. Anyway, to continue, see achievable targets. Do not claim that a year-long project will produce radical change. Rather, see clear objectives that can be fulfilled. Remember that the success of the project will also determine your chances of obtaining more funding. Thus, see each project as a small contribution toward bigger ends. So that's achievable. Next one, it must be realistic. It states what results can realistically be achieved given available resources. Realistic means result oriented. Your project objective should be able to answer the questions like why should this project be done? What impact will this project have? Set objectives parallel to your organization's strategic plan and mission addressing the specific needs of your target group. The next one, we have time bounded. There need to be deadlines, but are they reasonable? Remember, your objective must be reached in a set time frame. Draw on the results of similar projects and observe what is happening in your community to decide how long it will take to complete a task. Consider all the steps you intend to make, from advertising your project, gathering interested parties, negotiating your goals with those of your target, and starting the activities. Take note of other events that might become an obstacle for reaching your goals or time. If you work with young unemployed people, consider whether they will likely to prefer an intensive training for 4 weeks or whether they will be more likely to commit for a long period. Remember, life is unpredictable. It is important that the objectives are flexible and negotiable. This does not mean that they should be vague or general. They must be extremely precise and detailed, but they must also convey the idea that throughout the development of the study, you will constantly engage with set of objectives to make necessary changes and ratification when appropriate. That's all for statement of the problem. Now let's us move on with the hypothesis. Imagine you have a test at school tomorrow. You stay out late and see a movie with friends. You know that when you study the night before, you get good grades. What do you think will happen on tomorrow's test? When you answered this question, you formed a hypothesis. A hypothesis or hypothesis for plural is a specific, testable prediction. It describes in concrete terms what you expect will happen in a certain circumstance, like what we have in our example a while ago. In our example, your hypothesis may have been if not studying lowers lowers test performance and I do not study, then I will get a low grade on the test. Obviously, if you will not study, you will have low grades. The purpose of a hypothesis is used in an experiment to define the relationship between two variables. The purpose of a hypothesis is to find the answer to a certain question. A formalized hypothesis will force us to think about what results we should look for in an experiment. The first variable is called the independent variable. This is the part of the experiment that can be changed and tested. The independent variable happens first and can be considered the cause of any changes in the outcome. So, in short, uh, independent variable can be changed. It the outcome is called the dependent variable. The independent variable in our previous example is not studying for a test. The dependent variable that you are using to measure outcome is your test score. So based on our example, the independent variable is the time that you did not study uh, your test or your exam. The dependent variable is the result of your exam. Let's use the previous example again to illustrate these ideas. The hypothesis is testable because you will receive a score on your test performance. It is measurable because you can compare test scores received from when you did study and test scores received from when you did not study. So take note of that. A hypothesis should always explain what you expect to happen, be clear and understandable, be testable, be measurable, and contain an independent and dependent variable as what we explained a while ago based on our example regarding the by not studying the test before the lesson before the test exam or before the test day exam day. How to develop a hypothesis? Another important aspect of a hypothesis is that it should be based on research. Remember that the purpose of a hypothesis is to find the answer to a certain question. The first thing you should do if you want to answer a question is to find as much information on the topic as you can. Before you come up with a specific hypothesis, spend some time doing research. Then, start thinking of questions you still have. After thoroughly researching your question, you should have an educated guess about how things work. This guess about the answer to your question is where your hypothesis comes from. Let's imagine that you want to know why the leaves on the tree in your front yard change color in the fall. First, you would research this phenomenon. You observe what you see happen and read about the subject. You can have or you can research in the internet about uh certain study regarding why leaves on the tree fall uh why the leaves on the tree in your front yard change color in the fall. Or you can have or you can research also in certain books or other references. You discover that the color change happens when the temperature cools. What question does this information make you ask? So this is start of your hypothesis. Oh, there's another problem with my slides. Sorry for the technical problem. For my next slide, I think I will be giving you some examples of hypothesis based on our example a while ago with our general problem and a specific problem. Oh, sorry. I think I have a technical difficulty. Okay, sorry for that. Uh-huh. Let us have an example. I think this one. Mhm. Oh, this one. Okay, you come up with the following question. Does temperature cause the leaves to change color on the tree in my front yard? Next, you ask yourself if this can be tested. If it can be tested, you'll write a hypothesis that states what you expect to find. Your hypothesis could be if lower temperatures cause leaves to change color and the temperature surrounding a tree is decreased, then the leaves will change color. So that's your hypothesis. This is the introductory statement of the hypothesis. For a deeper analysis of the study, the hypothesis will be tested. This is the introductory statement of the hypothesis. For a deeper analysis of the study, the following hypothesis will be tested. Hypothesis starts with the phrases. There is no significant relationship or correlation between the next, or it can be in the form that there is no significant difference in the. So let us have an example based on our previous example, as I have said a while ago, in our general problem and state a specific problem. Based on our specific problem, is there a significant relationship between the stress causing factors experienced by secondary school teachers and job characteristic? The hypothesis will be there is no significant relationship between the stress causing factors experienced by secondary school teachers and job characteristics. So that's all for my slides. So read, ask, write, and research. Thank you. Once again, I am Dr. Clarence Akuman from the Philippines. Hello, Sir Jay. Sir Jay.
All right, so I am so thrilled right now. That was really great, sir. Well, it's been an
So,
honor for us to hear that marvelous presentations. Like to be honest, I personally learned so much because I am always vocal that I am also teaching a practical research one under qualitative research in senior high school. So I'm really thankful that I learned new things on your topic statement of the problem or the SOP, and as well as the hypothesis, such as the characteristics of a research problem, and it must be smart, as you say earlier, sir, and also the purpose of the hypothesis. And no doubt, not just me, but also our viewers learned so much from those takeaway information you instilled in our minds. Right. So once again, thank you so much. And again, that was Dr. Clarence Hakuman, ladies and gentlemen.
thank you, sir.
Right. So I guess it's now time for us to move on our next speaker. He is a principal one and also a doctor in philosophy. So ladies and gentlemen, let's all put our hands together as we welcome on screen Dr. Marvin Bolivar.
Hi, hello, sir. Can you hear me?
How are you doing, sir?
I'm good.
All right,
Can you
so
hear me now?
that's yes, sir, loud and clear.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, so you're welcome, sir. If you're ready, then take it away, sir.
Can you see my slide, Sir J? Is my presentation visible right now?
Not yet, sir.
Maybe there is some problem in terms of internet connection, I think. But it was already shared here in my laptop. Does it is already presented? Hello, Sir J.
We are not seeing anything yet, sir. All we see is a blank presentation.
Let me move it for a while to check if it is already present. Oh, okay. So, do you see it now, sir?
Not yet, sir.
By the way, while we are preparing for the presentation to be appeared in your screen, allow me to greet you, everyone. Good day, everyone. Once again, my pleasure to be part of this journey as the uh, part of the this global professionals continue its remarkable dedication in providing us with brilliant ideas, knowledge, and skills as global community in reshaping
Hello,
and
sir.
collaborating in education. Yes, sir.
Sorry, sir, for disturbing. So, can I help you to your screen, sir?
Yes, sir.
Firstly, open your PowerPoint presentation.
Uh-uh.
Sir, open your PowerPoint
Okay, okay, okay.
presentation. Sir, then click
Okay,
on
sir.
share.
Yes, sir.
Then again share screen.
Okay, do you see
Yes,
it right now?
yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay.
It's now.
Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Once again, good day, everyone. So it is my profound gratitude and warmest felicitation are extended to the organizer for being part of this journey. Indeed, it is also an opportunity to be thankful. So I am Sir Marvin Bolivar, a public elementary school head from the Schools Division of Pampanga, Philippines. So at this juncture, we shall be revisiting the basics and the importance of conceptual framework in research. Without any further ado, let's get the ball rolling, tantamount to the discussion for this hour. So just like what I've said a while ago, we shall be focusing on the conceptual framework. When we talk of conceptual framework, what it is? Conceptual framework is a written or visual representation of an expected relationship between variables. When we talk of the variables, these are simply the characteristics or properties that you want to study. A conceptual framework illustrates what you expect to find through your research. It defines the relevant variables for your study and maps out how they might relate to each other. You should construct your conceptual framework before you begin collecting data. It is often represented in a visual format. Another thing, when we talk of conceptual framework, it represents the researcher's synthesis of the literature on how to explain a certain phenomenon. It maps out the actions required in the course of the study, given his previous knowledge of other researchers' point of view and his observations on the subject of research. In other words, the conceptual framework is the researcher's understanding of how the particular variables in his study connect. Thus, it identifies the variables required in the research investigation. It is the researcher's map in pursuing the investigation. Likewise, the conceptual framework sets the stage to present the particular research question that drives the investigation being reported based on the problem statement. The problem statement of a thesis gives the context and the issues that caused the researcher to conduct the study. Also, the conceptual framework lies a much better broader framework called a theoretical framework. The latter draws support from the time-tested theories that embody the researcher's finding why and how a particular phenomenon occurs. So let's have a closer look on a simple example that we have when we talk of the conceptual framework. We have here, if you want to know if teachers' alternative work arrangement, or what we call the AWA, affects job performance. To investigate this question, you can use survey to test the relationship between variables. And before you start collecting data, construct a conceptual framework to show exactly which variables you will measure and how you expect them to relate to each other. So we have there the example of a research. Okay, so let's move on to the different steps that you want to indulge to yourself on how you can make your conceptual framework. First in the list is that you have to choose your topic. Okay, so when we have to consider this one, you decide on what will be your research topic. The topic should be within your field of specialization or your field of interest. And then, with the topic in mind, go to the body of the literature and start identifying the key concepts used by the other studies. Figure out what has been done by other researchers and what needs to be done. Either find a specific call to action and outline in the literature, or make your proposed problem has been studied in a specific setting. And then consider that you will use what you find needs to be done to either support a pre-identified problem or craft a general problem for your study. Only rely on the scholarly sources for this part of your research. So that is choose your topic. Next, let's move on to number 2. So it says that do a literature review. Begin to pull out the variables, concepts, theories, and existing frameworks explained in the related literature. Review relevant and updated research on the theme that you decide to work on after scrutiny of the issue at hand. Preferably, your peer-reviewed and well-known scientific journals, as these are reliable sources of information. Next step is you have to isolate the important variables. What you're going to do with this item. Okay, you have to identify the specific variables described in the literature and figure out how these are related. Some research abstracts contains variables and the salient findings, thus may serve its purpose. If these are not available, find the research paper's summary. Okay, just look at the summary of the research paper. And then, if you are building a framework, start thinking about how some of those variables, concepts, theories, and phases of existing frameworks come together to shape your problem. Then, the problem could be a situational condition that requires a scholarly practitioner approach, the result of a practical need or an opportunity to further application of your study, project, or research. Please remember that if the answer to your specific problem exists, you do not need to conduct the study. However, the actionable research you'd like to conduct will help shape you what you include in your framework. And also, consider that if your variables are not explicit in summary, get back to the methodology or the results and discussion section and quickly identify the study, your variables, and the significant findings. And then for number 4, generate the conceptual framework. Build your conceptual framework using your mix of the variables from the scientific articles that you have just read. Your problem statement or research objectives serves as a reference for constructing it. In effect, your study will attempt to answer the question that other researchers have not explained yet. Your research should address a knowledge gap. Another thing, under item number 4, your actionable research you'd like to conduct will help shape what you had include in your framework. Sketch the flow of your research from start to finish and then decide which variables are truly the best fit to your research. Also, you have to create a graphic representation of your framework. This part is, however, optional, but often helps readers understand the flow of your research. Even if you do a graphic, first write out how the variables could influence your research and introduce your methodology. Remember to use the APA model formatting in separating the sections of your framework to create a clear understanding of the framework for your reader. Also, as you move through your study, you may need to revise your framework. Note for qualitative and quantitative research. If doing qualitative, make sure that your framework doesn't include any arrow or arrows which could imply causal or correlational linkages. So those are the things that you must remember on how to make your own conceptual framework from your own study. So let's move on. Also consider the following variables, either independent and dependent variables in constructing your conceptual framework. So if we want to test a cause and effect relationship, we need to identify at least two key variables. And what are these? The independent variable and the dependent variable. In our example, the expected cost for the alternative work arrangement is the independent variable, also known as the predictor or explanatory variable. While the expected effect, we call it the job performance, which is the dependent variable, also known as the response or the outcome variable. In other words, job performance depends on the alternative work arrangement. Our hypothesis that the lesser the alternative work arrangement, the more they will perform. Meanwhile, the causal relationships open involve several independent variables that affect the dependent variable. However, to keep things simple, we'll work with just one independent variable, namely the alternative work arrangement. So we have an example here. To visualize our expected cause and effect relationship, we will use the basic design components of boxes and arrow that includes the independent variable and the dependent variable. So each variable appears in a box. As you can see, we are indicating a causal relationship. Each arrow should start from the independent variable, which is the cause, and point to the dependent variable, and we consider that as the effect. So you have here the independent variable, which is the alternative work arrangement. On the other hand, the dependent variable is the job performance. What about the moderating variables? Now we'll expand the framework by adding a moderating variable, also known as a moderator. When we talk of a moderator, it alters the effect or the effect that an independent variables or variable has on a dependent variable. So the moderator thus changes the effect component of the cause and effect relationship. So this moderation is also referred as the interaction effect. In our example, we expect that the alternative work arrangement is related to their job performance. That is, the more hours they work, the lower performance will be. Now we add the moderator, which is the health status. Health status changes the effect that the variable alternative work arrangement has on the job performance. The health status, the lesser AWA or the alternative work arrangement to have a higher job performance. In other words, the health status moderator moderates the effect that the alternative work arrangement has on the job performance. So we have there the independent variable, which is the alternative work arrangement. It follows the arrows for the dependent variable, which is the job performance. On the other hand, for the moderating variable, we use the health status. All of these are interconnected to each other in order to arrive with a specific result based from the framework that we have. Next, we have the mediating variables. Now we'll expand the framework by adding a mediating variable. In a cause and effect relationship, a mediating variable is a variable that links the independent and dependent variables, allowing the relationship between them to be better explained. Mediating variable of level of stress comes between the independent and dependent variables. The number of alternative work arrangement impacts the level of stress, which in turn impacts the job performance. So we have here the independent variable, which is the number of alternative work arrangement that goes to the moderator variable, which is the level of stress, and it goes or interconnected to dependent variable, which is job performance. In this case, the mediator helps explain why alternative work arrangement leads to a higher job performance. The lesser alternative work arrangement the teacher have, the lower level of stress. The lower level of stress, the higher job performance will be. By adding the mediating variable of level of stress, we help explain the cause and effect relationship between the two variables or the two main variables. Keeping in mind that the mediating variables can be difficult to interpret and care must be taken when conclusion has come to existence or you have to consider. So let us compare the difference between moderator and mediator variables. So let us see. It is important not to confuse a moderators and a mediator or mediators. To remember the difference, you can think of them in a relation to the independent variable. When we talk of the mediating variable, it is always affected by the independent variable and it affects the dependent variable. Therefore, it links the two variables and helps explain the relationship between them. Also, a moderating variable is not affected by the independent variable, even though affects the dependent variable. For example, no matter how many alternative work arrangement that we have in the dependent variable or independent variable rather, health status will not get higher. Okay? And then let us have the different types of conceptual framework that you can consider in your paper. So we have the input, process, output. So your paradigm will show the different information or data under the input, and then your instrument or steps to be considered to be included in your process. On the other hand, your expected output will fall on the output diagram. So we have the input, process, output. Also, you may consider another model or another type of conceptual framework. We have the IPOO. We have the input, process, output, and the outcome. So we have an additional diagram that will show the concept framework, which is the output. Okay? And also we have the independent variable and dependent variable. So as you can see, we have presented sample conceptual framework that tells about the independent variable and dependent variable. And then we have the independent variable, moderating or mediating variable, then dependent variable. So you can use any of those types depending on the kind of study, same is true, the coverage of your paper when you are using your conceptual framework or designing your conceptual framework. And then let us have an example for the input process output. So we have this for the input under the diagram that falls under the input. We have the different variables that causes the problem, the phenomenon, or transformation. For example, we have the profile of entrepreneurs that includes the age, the sex, and the seminar. And another thing, the role of entrepreneurs. We have the specimen, the collection, and the performance. It goes to the arrow for the process. When we talk of the process, this is the method by which the variables are collected and synthesized. So example of the activity that you might include under the process. So we have the analysis of data through questionnaires, informal interviews, and statistical treatment of your data. While the result covers the output that tells about the problem, the phenomenon, or the transformation, the outcome of the variables. So your expected output would be improved role of entrepreneurs, higher returns, and at the same time, better quality of services. So that is the sample diagram for the input process output. On the other hand, we have the input, process, output, and outcome. This time, we have four boxes included in our conceptual paradigm or paradigm. So we have the input, the process, the outcome, and the output and the outcome. So you have the different information that would describe your study based on the input, then what you are going to do in order to arrive with the output that tells about the process. So we have the sample there, and then for the output, the faculty evaluation system, Meanwhile, we have the different expected outcomes based on this model. Okay, so we have to devise a diagram that goes like this or similar to this following this type of conceptual framework: the input, process, output, and the outcome. Next, we have the independent variable and dependent variable. How does it look like? So we have only the independent variable, the box intended for the independent variable. Say we will be including the alternative work arrangement that the arrows goes to the dependent variable that affects the independent variable, which is the job performance. So we have only two variables here, independent and dependent variables. Meanwhile, we have the independent variable, moderating variable, and dependent variable. So as you can see, it provides the variable intended for the independent and dependent. Then we have a remaining box for moderator variable. Under the independent variable, just like what has been presented a while ago, we have the alternative work arrangement. On the other hand, for the dependent variable, we have the job performance. For the moderator variable, we have the health status. So these three variables affect in one way or another in order to arrive with the possible outcomes of your study. And then we have the independent variable, the mediating variable, and dependent variable. So how does it look like? So same with the previous model. So we have the independent variable. The only difference is we are using the moderator variable. Okay. So under the independent variable, we have the number of alternative work arrangement. For the dependent variable, we do have the job performance. Meanwhile, for the moderator or moderator variable, should I say, we are talking with the level of stress. And then before I will end up my presentation, allow me to share with you this statement given by Celia Green. The way to do research is to attack the facts at the point of the greatest astonishment. Thank you so much for paying attention and active listening. God bless us all. Have a good day. Once again, this is Sir Marvin Bolivar from the Philippines. Thank you so much.
All right. So thank you so much, Dr. Marvin. That was really amazing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your extravagant presentation regarding your topic, developing a conceptual framework to research. And no doubt our viewers, like once again, learn so much and gain so much takeaway information from you as well. So thank you so much, Sir Marvin, for sharing not just your knowledge, but most importantly, for sharing your valuable time.
Thank you so
Right.
much
So
also,
like
sir.
once again, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Marvin Bolivar. Right. So unfortunately, we don't have our quiz competition for today, and so we'll proceed straight on our question and answer portion. So may I call in once again on screen Dr. Clarence Hakuman. And also joining us today on our research webinar series is our research expert, Dr. Arnold D. Alvaro. So once again, unfortunately, we're not going to have our question and answer portion for today. So we'll proceed straight on our question and answer portion. So let's have once again on screen Dr. Clarence Akuman, and joining us once again today is our research expert, Dr. Arnold D. Alvaro, for our question and answer portion. Right? So everyone, if you have any questions or concerns regarding our topic, please you so much for staying with us, Dr. Clarence, Dr. Arnold. Welcome, sir, and Dr. Marvin. So, like, audience, you can start sharing your question if you have, again, confusion, clarifications, or if you wanted to learn more on our statement of the research problem, hypothesis, and the conceptual framework that has been discussed earlier, then you can share it with us. So, I guess we have our first question. So, from Sir Bernardo Arguvara Jr., what do you think is the best type of conceptual framework to be used in our research? I think this question is for Sir Marvin.
Thank you, sir, for that question. I think the best type of conceptual framework that you can use in your research will depend on your research design. So if you are after all your descriptive, I would rather choose the IPO model. But if you will be using your experimental, I would rather use the IVDV or the independent dependent variable with the moderator or mediating variable. So it will depend on the kind of study that you have or the design that you will employ in your paper.
All right. So thank you so much, Sir Marvin, for answering
Yes,
our
sir.
first question. So that depends on the research design and research study.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So let's have our next question. Right. So dear audience, once again, see if you have any clarification or if you wanted to ask something, right? You can share it with us. Anyway, we have our next question from Lamberto Pelatan. So, sirs, how important is hypothesis in our research study or in our study or research? Thank you. So, I think this one is for Sir Clarence or Dr. Clarence.
Sorry, I don't have an audio. Um, Hypothesis is important in a study or research. Uh, as I have said a while ago, hypothesis is a specific testable prediction. It describes a concrete term or terms the what you expect will happen in your study or in your research.
May I answer? Okay.
Sure, Sir Arnold.
Um, yes, the hypothesis is very important because we will use it if we want to actually, the first thing that we must do is to parallelize or actually the hypothesis came from the statement of the problem. So therefore, after you have that hypothesis, therefore you could answer the specific problem in your SOP. So that is the use of hypothesis. And later on, if you want to reject it or
Or
accept it,
accept.
more results and discussion. Thank
All right, so thank you so much, Sir Clarence and Sir Arnold, for answering our second question. Let's now proceed to our next question from Ma'am Jeneline de la Cruz. So, is an experimental research, should there be a conceptual framework? In an experimental research, should there be a conceptual framework?
Uh, I think that question was already answered because if you will, your study focuses on the experimental research, conceptual framework you may include in your study. Since there are variables involved, we have the independent and dependent variables.
Yes, I agree with Dr. Bolivar. So it's the same. So using the experimental design, you will have what we call the pre-test and the post-test.
Yes.
Later on,
Mm.
if you want to find if there is significant difference between the pre-test scores and the post-test scores. So therefore, you will need that conceptual framework to visualize if there is a significant difference between.
All right, thank you so much, sirs. So from again Sir Bernardo R. Guevara Jr., do we need to put color inside the box in constructing conceptual paradigm? Again, so do we need to put color inside the box in constructing conceptual paradigm?
I think there is no need to include colors in your conceptual paradigm. No need to add colors, no need to add the aesthetic value of your paradigm. Just black and white will do.
May I add?
Sure, Sir Clarence.
Let me just share my experience. Actually, I do put colors inside the backs of my conceptual paradigm when I was still studying in my master's. Uh, but my mentor or my mentor, yeah, told me to erase the color, not to put color inside the backs. As what Sir Marvin told a while ago, it's okay if you use black and white.
Okay. So probably just to add color, sir, in case.
Yeah,
All right.
actually, it depends on the university. But some university, they are encouraging to put color so that it would add life. So it's again, it's dependent on the
It
university
would
or
add
that.
light.
But I agree
Yes.
with them. No need to add color because you need to just visualize your SOP.
The color
Okay.
will not affect your findings.
I agree, sir. Anyway, let's now proceed in our next question from Genesis Labor or Libor. All right. So, how to formulate hypothesis for a survey research. So, again, how to formulate hypothesis for a survey research.
Actually, uh, the hypothesis must come from with your statement of the problem. As I've told a while ago, the hypothesis starts with the phrases such as there is no significant difference, or there is no significant relationship, there is no significant correlation. So those are examples on how to or going to formulate your hypothesis. Yeah.
All right. So,
I agree
thank
with
you.
Dr. Hakuman. That's the answer for that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arnold. Right. So, let's now have another question from Ma'am Jessica Balbuena Caruno. So, what should not be included in the statement of the problem or the SOP? What should not be
Uh,
included in the SOP?
Actually, I've already discussed a while ago the key characteristics of a statement of a problem. Um, those who are in the key characteristics must be included in your SOP. Uh, you, the things that you will not find in the key characteristics, you should not have that in your SOP. Or simply, if it is not really related with your problem,
Do
you
not
you must
include.
not include it in your SOP.
Mm.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I agree with him. In addition, make sure that all the things that you have put in your SOP is related again to the title. Don't put anything that is not related to your title because it is again it's outside the box. So just go inside the box.
Correct.
Mhm. Right. So thank you so much, Sir Arnold and Sir Clarence. Okay, so from Ma'am Anne Acierto, so Sir Hakuman. So what following requirements to craft a good hypothesis? Again, so like what following requirements to craft a good hypothesis?
Crafting a good hypothesis, I think you just have to stay with your statement of the problem. You just have to stay with your problem itself to craft a good hypothesis. Uh, like what Sir Arnold said a while ago, you should not what do you call this? You
Go
you
outside the
should not
box, right?
live
outside
Yeah,
the
you
box.
should not you should not go outside the box. Just focus with your problem itself to have a good hypothesis.
Yeah, and in addition, again, for that, uh, as we if we could listen to the passive speakers, especially Dr. Rio Santiago, we have discussed that everything in your thesis or dissertation or research should be parallel, or what we call it is a barbecue stick. That is the word of Dr. Rio, wherein um, this hypothesis came from the SOP.
Correct.
In other term, copy paste and just erase. Is there a significant difference? Change it to there is no significant.
Yeah.
So that
Make
or
make
there is no
just make
significant
just make a
relationship.
null hypothesis out of your SOP.
Okay, sir, thank you so much. Like, again, there's a question from Sir Lamberto Pilaten. So, sirs, what makes a good research statement? Thank you. What makes a good research statement?
Doc Marvin?
I think don't go away to your title. Always consider the congruency of your title from your paper, from the start to finish. That is
Research.
the best thing that you can do in order to come up with an effective or good statement of the problem.
Okay, so thank you so much, Sir Marvin. From Nigina Misirova, so I hope that I pronounced it correctly. What aspects do we have to pay attention when we are using good hypothesis in our research? Thank you in advance. Again, so what aspects do we have to pay attention when we are using good hypothesis in our research? Thank you in advance. So from
Ah,
Nigina Misirova.
okay, thank you, Ma'am Regina. And actually, as I said a while ago, a good hypothesis must focus with your problem itself. You should not go outside the box, as I have said a while ago. Focus on your research problem, then out of your problem, make a general statement. Then out of your general statement, make a specific statement. And out of that specific statement, you will come up with your statement of the problem or SOP. Then after that SOP, you will have your hypothesis.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Dr. Clarence. I am actually trying to recall everything. I'm trying to absorb. This might be helpful for me as well. Right. So third question. Wow, Sir Lamberto is so active. From
Yeah.
again, Sir Lamberto Pilatan. So like when is a theoretical framework needed in research? When is it not needed?
I think when there is a theory that you included in your study, that is the best time to include the theoretical framework. Anyway, theory and the concept are different.
Yes, I agree with that. With
True.
Dr. Bolivar. So again, from the word theoretical, it's from the theory itself,
Mm-mm.
from conceptual framework, from the word concept. So if you have the theory, if you can find theory related to your topic, you can put theoretical. But if you don't have, just go with the concept.
Disregard.
Actually, if
Mm-mm.
your study is new, you can use conceptual. However, some university they are looking for the theoretical and conceptual. So therefore, as researchers, we will try to find out what are the theories related again to our study. That's from
Mhm.
theory, theoretical, and conceptual.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you so much, Sir Marvin and Sir Arnold. Right, so let's now proceed on our next question. So from Sir Rabi Alcohol, so sir, is it wrong to have only two boxes in a schematic diagram? Again, is it wrong to have only two boxes in schematic diagram?
Two boxes. Uh, are you referring to the model that we have intended for the independent and dependent variable? So let's make it clear. So we have two boxes included in that model. However, if you will include the moderator and the mediating, we will add another box for that. It will always depend on the type of framework that you indulge into your paper. Okay? Not necessary that you will include two boxes.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Marvin.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, from Evelyn Waperli. So to Sir Clarence, what are the problems of the research student to formulate hypothesis and to Sir Bolivar? So like what is the difference between conceptual framework and theoretical framework? Thank you. Conceptual framework and theoretical framework.
What are the problems on the research student? You mean the problems encountered by the student in formulating hypothesis? Is that the question? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the question of Ma'am Evelyn? The problems
Um,
encountered by the research student in formulating hypothesis? Did I get it right?
Probably what are the usual problems?
Uh-huh.
What
Uh,
are the usual problems? It's
what are
kind
the
of
usual
confusing.
problems? Yes,
Mm,
sir. But if the question is, what are the usual problems encountered by the students in formulating hypothesis? Uh, ano ba? I think they will face problems if they will not they will if they didn't know what their problem is actually. I think um I think there will be no problem in formulating hypothesis if they really know their study, because the hypothesis must be based on your statement of the problem, and statement of the problem will be based in your general statement, and general statement will be based in your problem itself, study itself. So I think the only problem that the student will be facing is that they really don't know the problem itself, I think.
May I add, sir? So actually, it already answered by Dr. Hakun. But may I add, sometimes our students are we call this there is something wrong with the connotation between the we call this hypothesis and assumption. Yeah, sometimes
mm,
we encounter the assumption and hypothesis. Assumption is just um actually it did not start with that there is no assumption there the from the word example academic performance is higher than the presupposed. It's not it didn't start with there is no. That is the difference between assumption and the hypothesis. Actually, it sometimes that is the one of the difficult some problems that the students encounter between choosing assumption and the hypothesis itself. But some university they are not allowing students to use assumption. So it depends on the university or guidance.
yes, sir, I agree. Sometimes I'm also experiencing the same thing, the assumption, the hypothesis with my students. Anyway, right, so we have another question from Sir J. Mark Lyon. So on the IPOO framework, so when is the best time to use this instead of IPO?
Uh, Before I will answer that question, I think one question that was not answered yet by Mom, the difference between the conceptual
The
framework
conceptual
and
and
then the
the theoretical
theoretical
framework,
framework.
yes.
Yes. So when we talk of the conceptual framework, we are referring to a specific problem that requires solution. On the other hand, when we talk of the theoretical framework, we are referring to general problems that we want to imply with a solution to a various things. So it is more on generalistic or uh, general attack for the framework that we have. On the other hand, if you will, when is the best time to use? I think in the first place, if your framework is the IPOO, why will you intend to use the IPO? Focus just only on the variables that you had included in your study. So if you only included the IPO, utilize the IPO, not the IPOO. Okay? Same with the IPOO. If your framework calls for the input process output outcome, just utilize that framework, not the input process output.
All right. So
Okay,
thank
so that's okay. That already it's already answered by Dr. Bolivar. But may I add, sometimes the difference the difference between
Mm.
IPO and IPOO is that in IPOO we have the output. Actually, if you choose IPOO, it makes what call this, your study would be doubled. But if you choose IPO, that's only it's an easy study. Again, IPOO from the word input, process, output,
Output.
outcome. You after you have the what we call the input, you may will make your own output from the output that is, for example, your innovation. After, and then you come up again with the question to find what is the outcome of your innovation. You make, as we have said, make your life,
Easier.
make your research
easier.
become easier, not to make it harder for you.
Yes.
uh yeah, that is.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sir Marvin and Sir Arnold. So another question from Ma'am Jervin Comia Ramirez. What is the purpose of a problem statement of problems or research questions? Purpose of a problem statement of problems or research questions.
Uh, uh, Again, actually, the question is being answered with the key characteristics. The purpose of the problem statement of the statement of the problem or research question is, again, it address the gap in knowledge, and then this will, yeah, this will lead to further research, render investigation. So those are the purpose of the statement of the problem. And for also to the statement of the problem also support with your general statement in support with your main problem.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Clarence. Okay, so we have another question once again from Sir J. Mark
First
Lyon.
mark.
So when can we consider to use more than one pair of hypotheses? When can we consider to use more than one pair of hypotheses?
I think it depends with your study. Sometimes we can use two or three hypotheses depending on the statement of the problem that you created out of your study of your out of your problem.
Yeah, again, it depends on your SOP. So if you, for example, from the example of Dr. Bolivar and Dr. Human, the stress causing factors, the sorry, the AWA and job performance. Okay, so if you want to add, okay, for example, that's AWA is statement of the problem number one. Number two is the job performance. Number three,
Health
um,
status.
if you want to relate AWA and job performance, you can have that what we call the three SOP. And another thing, sometimes the university and colleges are asking, after knowing this, what would you do? So we come up with the SOP number four. what are the intervention program that we can use to address the problems encountered. So
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Arnold. All right. So I guess that's that ends our question and answer portion, right?
Yay!
So
for your
Thank you so much.
questions,
I think, yes, that concludes our webinar for today. Okay, so thank you so much once again to our amazing speakers who have contributed a lot in today's episode: statement of the research problem, hypothesis, and conceptual framework. So once again, never-ending gratitude to our magnificent speakers for today, Dr. Clarence Human and Dr. Marvin Bolivar, and also thank you also to Dr. Arnold for being part of our question and answer portion. Right. So before we finally end our webinar, any final word from Dr. Clarence Human and Dr. Marvin Bolivar?
Um, it's good to study. It's good to do some research. You have to try it for you to believe it.
Just continue to come up with new things, and that is research. Beside research is fun and exciting. Dare yourself to come up with research.
Okay, so once again, thank you so much again to our amazing speakers, Dr. Clarence Akuban and Dr.
Thank you.
Marvin Bolivar. Thank
Our
you, sirs. And
pleasure.
also to Dr.
Thank you.
Arnold, thank you so much, sir. Right, so thank you so much to our knowledge seeker. I would love to thank you all for attending today's session. Hopefully, you've learned something new and something interesting today, right? So please leave a review or recommend our page if you learned something wonderful on our discussion. So once again, do not forget to collect your e-certificate and give a check-in with IGP. Please spread the information with your friends, and we hope to see you all on our next webinar. So thank you so much for staying with us, and I hope to see you all again in our next episodes. So once again, I am Sir
Bye bye.
Jason S. Yumang saying thank you, be safe, and stay happy always. Thank you.